Hi, and welcome to the weekly predictions based on astrology for the week of March 1st, 2021. In terms of the stock market direction, I think Monday and Tuesday are going to be up days. Market may go down on Wednesday, then it reverse back to up on Thursday, and again go back down to on Friday. In terms of the important events that we may see on various days of the week, I think Monday and Tuesday may see increased focus on all things related to like IT, high tech, airlines, airspace, telecommunications, electric power plants, electric power grids, batteries, electric cars, etc. And so most of these solutions may be related to specifically communication and transportation. So perhaps there may be some reports of increased travel or increased in number of subscribers or some improvements made to improve the quality of communications or increase the availability of transport to accommodate for the increased number of travelers or somehow increase capacity or speed, number of destinations, etc. Then more or less for the entire week, Monday through Friday, 1st through the 2nd, and especially 1st through the 5th of March, and especially the 4th, we may, generally speaking, have a lot of just reports coming out, a lot of news, and again, the focus might be in particular on transportation and communication industries, anything to do with like traveling overseas, especially long distances, shipment of goods across long distances, as well as education. And in terms of, and again, some of these things may come up as some sort of improvements in technologies to enable these things to perform better, maybe, enable kids to log in, faster, or a greater number of users can now log in into some sort of application to learn, or perhaps, again, greater number of hubs are available or transportation spots, for example, or stops, I should say, or there are some changes announced by airlines or IT companies or social media companies or even education entities that somehow could be aimed at improving the flow of information or flow of goods and, people. At the same time, there may be some important legal announcements, again, related to those same areas. So, for example, some sort of legal decision is made that helps to move goods or people across the state or international borders, or some legal act again is implemented and that helps to improve some sort of communication solution. At the same time, there may just be increased number of sort of news or reports about lawsuits, lawyers, judges, and or just increased focus on new laws in general. And again, those most likely will address some improvements or some changes in the area of communication, transportation, and education. Let's see. So this week in general is actually beneficial for announcements for companies or for projects that are focused on improving the state of or the quality of transportation and communication, especially anything that's like high tech. So perhaps again, social media platform, making things kind of faster, more user friendly, opening a greater number of bus stops or just more hubs for even for an airplane or for airline somewhere where basically there's great opportunity to transport more people, transport things or information faster, or perhaps a law affects some sort of import-export conditions, some tariffs. So again, things might be moving faster this week for those areas, and most likely we will hear about some improvements to again facilitate the movement of goods and people faster or to improve communication flow, and obviously that would help then any projects that are oriented towards learning or education. And in particular, on the 4th of March, we may hear about, if say there was some pending negotiations on the 1st through the 3rd, on the 4th is where most likely it will be finalized, or there's going to be like a legal agreement penciled, or penned, I should say, where it finally becomes like actual law, or it is, the project actually begins, or the first, train leaves the station. And other type of manifestations might be, again, laws that say affect import-export, immigration, and or somehow they govern the use of high-tech solutions for like mobile apps or electric vehicles, social media, and those apps may specifically have to do with communicating or transportation, or perhaps learning new languages, or communicating with increased number of sort of people in other nations. So maybe an app that offers some sort of a unique feature where it's easier to communicate with people from other countries, maybe a translation feature or something like that, or perhaps an app that was local and very popular locally, but now this app this week becomes available for users in other countries or something like that. For the US, 1st and 2nd of March look like important days where we may hear some positive news such as increased earnings or some improved opportunities. Yet again, for long distance transportation and communication, this may involve some sort of favorable for the US international agreements, or some deals or agreements or negotiations that involve issues related to import-export, immigration, and higher education. So if there's some ongoing negotiations in those areas, they may proceed better than expected, kind of flow smoothly, agreements may be reached, or some outlook, long-term outlook may improve, maybe about, say, long-term, profits from import and export agreement, or some project that is involved in transporting goods internationally. This week looks better than, before, especially Monday and Tuesday for the US. For China, generally speaking, early to mid-March 2021, and especially 2nd through 5th of March this week, there may be focus on power plays in relationships and partnerships, meaning especially one-on-one kind of partnerships, not as a part of a group, but rather individual relations with individual countries. And the issues that may come up will be focused on either legality of something, like maybe one party suspecting the other of, say, hacking or spying or doing something illegal, as well as topics of nuclear power and recycling may come up. And there may be some grand plans announced by China to improve or expand these areas. So maybe some sort of military cooperation, or some task force to deal with illegal activities, such as, some entity that they suspect of either hacking, stealing energy, or spying. And there may also be focus on promoting various alternative energy sources, especially nuclear and solar. And there we may hear also some news related to either new laws being passed or considered, or international expansion of related projects. At the same time, there may be kind of a caveat at this time. If, say, there are these negotiations or these grand plans for expansion are announced, then there may be a tendency to overestimate how well sort of things will go, or the needs for such energy or resources that may be necessary to implement those plans. So those grand plans may be kind of scaled down a little bit later, or perhaps, if they are not scaled down, that there may be, like I said, probability, but there's a risk of overexpansion where later, greater resources might be required to actually implement the projects than were anticipated. And specifically for March 1st and 2nd, for China, there may be some positive news, again, along the lines of like increased earnings, improved conditions related to oil, gas, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, navy, and other Neptunian areas. So this could be also beverages, movies, music, etc. And there we may hear about either a new project or new goals announced in those areas, that is like oil, gas, chemicals, or pharmaceuticals, etc. And those may be, those new goals, new vision kind of may be accompanied by news about either sales, deals, transportation, or investments in those areas. And also on Monday and Tuesday for China, there may be increased probability of disagreements with partners. Again, this one-on-one partnerships, where perhaps, again, some deal is being discussed, but this disagreement takes on a more kind of a heated term, or there may be greater push, kind of more aggressive tone is then taken by China to basically promote these negotiations to kind of not enforce, but to achieve whatever the outcome that the country sees is beneficial to itself, and this might especially involve either something related to military, weapons, or solar power. Let's see, Tuesday, specifically March 2nd, for the US seems like a good day in terms of increased probability of positive news, such as earnings going up, improved conditions, greater recognition, or successful negotiations related to someone's leadership. So a leader is being either promoted. By leader, I mean somebody like a CEO or of an important, like large, well-known company, or an actor, or some politician, somebody who is like a well-known person, and that person may be again somehow recognized for their accomplishments, or they're in the news because of some important achievements. And there may also be increased news again on the 2nd of March for US about international relations. Yet again, long-distance international transportation, shipments, international agreements, import-export, immigration, various laws like legal agreements being entered into, as well as higher education. So, like I said, there might be a well-known leader who's being recognized for or promoted, and or there could be like an international agreement or negotiations. If they're ongoing in the second, they may actually go better than expected, or there may be some improvement in the areas of long-distance transportation or communication, such as, say, there's a new international route or connection is made, or a new hub is opened. Some positive developments there, I believe, for the US. So 3rd of March, generally global influence may see that even though despite this whole week we may have like more than usual number of optimistic news and reports related to especially communication, transportation, and especially high-tech sort of developments or innovations in those areas. But on Wednesday, I think market may go down slightly, and that's possible because of some concerns that things are moving too fast, that maybe these new innovative approaches are just a little bit too risky, or again, things maybe need to slow down a little bit. And there may also be some slight concerns that maybe like if there is travel and we hear about increasing travel and new routes being opened, etc., then again, maybe on Wednesday there may be some concerns like and there's some things that may be mentioned that maybe some details are missed, and those concerns may potentially bring market down slightly on Wednesday. For China, Wednesday the 3rd and also 7th and 8th of March 2021 may see slight concerns about projects and initiatives related to communication, transportation, yet again, as well as oil, gas, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, navy, etc. And there may be some focus on like the old initiative being discarded or ending, and replacing it with some new initiative and new projects, and also replacing old leadership with the new leadership, appointing new leaders before these productive initiatives can begin. So there's going to be potentially focus on some new initiatives, and again, specifically communication, transportation, as well as oil, gas, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, and navy. But the focus may be on the change in strategy, finishing up some old projects and starting new ones, and again, changing leadership as it relates to kind of making sure that you have proper leaders to oversee these new initiatives. On the 4th, Thursday, I think 4th will probably be the most sort of significant day of this week, where again, if there's any pending maybe discussions about some laws or appointing of someone like a judge, I don't know, or if there's a lawsuit that's pending. Thursdays where I thought most likely be the go ahead day, the green light day, or the decision day, so that, say, if a lawsuit was being in the works, or I don't know, being prepared to be filed, it may be filed that day, or if there's a new train route was about to open, that's when maybe the first train finally begins, I guess, the first travel, or if there's again something that needs to be signed or something that needs to be legalized. Thursday is most likely when it will actually happen, like a launch of our, of some test for some rocket, or first train ride, as I said, or a launch of an app. And like there may be an announcement of some new service, especially like social media related, or device. And if indeed there's such an announcement of like a new service, like an app, device, or some new travel route or something like that, then most likely that device, that project, or that destination will be more popular than normally would be expected, and or that device or that service may gain wider acceptance and popularity than expected. Other things maybe, again, that we may expect on Thursday will be some legal change or some law, or generally speaking, there may be increased news in the, in the media about lawyers, judges, as well as other well-educated persons, such as, professors or ambassadors, diplomats, famous travelers, or even some internationally recognized social media like stars, influencers, and particularly those who are like somehow geeky or nerdy, or focus on covering some technology advancements, and or are somehow extravagant or different in some way. We may hear kind of more coverage in the news about these individuals and what they're up to. So interesting day on Thursday. And then on Friday, slight direction change. I think it will be from up on Thursday to down on Friday, just because this enthusiasm and optimism and I guess just kind of exuberance of Thursday may slightly start going down on Friday. And let's see, and on Friday there may also be slight concerns about oil prices due to conditions or these announcements related to international travel, international relations. So maybe there's some tensions that are rising internationally, and so again that leads to concerns about, say, travel, and therefore concerns about oil prices. And maybe this will be related to some announcements that come out Monday through Thursday. So if there's some announcements again related to transportation, communication, especially long distances, Monday through Thursday, they may affect sort of considerations about oil prices come Friday. And generally speaking, I think first through about the 13th may see generally increased focus on oil prices, and around the 13th or so I think there might be a reversal. So I think it is more likely than the 13th will be a top, meaning that between like 1st and 13th oil prices may go up, but regardless of the direction, I think 13th of March may see a reversal in oil prices, or at least there'll be some more kind of significant news coming out around then. So in terms of glance ahead at the upcoming few weeks to few months, what to expect, I think again April, August, and December of this year, and especially around April 17th, August 9th, and December 15th, there may be some important news or important reversal days for gold and or silver, and or some news about gold and silver, and that may have to do with some news about fiscal policies, or some rate changes, or currency changes, or value rather, changes in the value of USD at that time. And somebody asked me on other videos in terms of like what's the prediction for gold and silver for this month. I'm not 100% sure. It's more like when I see some important transits that I think are indicative of events that are relevant for gold and silver moves, then I will mention them. But from just glancing at what might be coming up for March, I think the following dates might be important as potential reversal dates for gold and silver. Is March 13th, possibly a top, March 26th, possibly a bottom, and April 17th, as I mentioned, maybe a top. April 17th, out of those dates, I'm the most kind of positive about that would be significant for gold and silver. And in terms of movements for this week, again, they're not really strong indicators, but I think if I had to kind of put my best guess, I would think that 2nd and 3rd of March we may see an up movement for gold and or silver, and then March the 4th may see a reversal from basically up to down, and 5th again may be a down day. And again, this is nothing 100% guaranteed. This is just my best guess based on the research that I have done so far, which is obviously one person's research. So definitely use your judgment before making your own decisions, basically based on these predictions. In terms of other upcoming important, I guess, dates coming up in the future months, I noted those on my blog at lastunka.com and some new glance ahead kind of predictions, and specifically June 1st through 6th, and especially June 4th and 5th seem to be like tense days where there may be increased probability of major accidents, earthquakes, some problems with either underground storage or mines, or just basically ground, meaning like there's a, I don't know, basically ground is shaking, or there's a mudslide that's significant, or some underground storage collapses. There may also be problems with nuclear power, recycling facilities, again, especially those where things are stored underground or are hidden in some way, escalation of military tensions, anti-governmental protests, and really any other dangerous or tense events. It could be, say, there's a, I mean, I'm not following sports so much, but if there's like a sporting event scheduled for that day, like that involves high speed, kind of a powerful engine or individuals, or, you know, any sort of like weaponry, like, you know, I don't know, bow and arrow or something like that, that would actually not be very good time for such events, because there's an increased probability of basically individuals getting injured. At the same time, again, June 1st through 6th for the stock market, what might be relevant is that there may be increased concerns about transportation of oil, gas, as well as other Neptunian areas, transportation of also beverages, chemicals, pharmaceuticals. Concerns could be like that there's maybe a delay in delivery because of some tensions internationally, or because of an accident, or a windy weather. And obviously there might be concerns about price of oil related to this disruption. And even kind of more of an important time, I'd say, coming up this summer, where definitely, if it was me, I wouldn't be scheduling any such, you know, events, sporting events that are perhaps somehow involve any dangerous sports, or just maybe not really avoid flying, for example, is June 29th through July 9th, and especially July 1st through 6th. There we will have this Saturn and Uranus square, and we'll have Mars joining in to basically make things extra tense and difficult. So again, probability of major accidents, earthquakes, escalation of military tensions, anti-governmental protests, fires, explosions, that's where Mars, you know, comes in, lightning strikes, that's Uranus, and also any other tense or dangerous events. And because of this Uranian influence, of course, it is squared by Saturn, so Saturn somehow sometimes is able to kind of make things, either things just really break, that they're old, maybe like an old part breaks because of too much tension, or basically Uranus then would make things happen suddenly, unexpectedly, and what Mars would bring is something that's overheating and is overstressed because of too much, you know, the speed is too high, there's too much rotation, so perhaps it could be something based on the signs and which those planets are. I think it could be like a material that's used in a construction or farming, so something can go into flames, perhaps the weather is too hot, or an old part gives way because, again, it's been overused, or it's just been made to go faster than really it should, or there's sudden onset of turbulent weather, and again, like maybe a tornado or a lightning storm, and this may lead to something, basically some other additional damages that are beyond just that windstorm, like something ignites or is damaged, again, because of some storage being disrupted. So we could have like an explosion or a fire, and basically not the best time for traveling by air as well, because Uranus rules things like airlines and airspace and rockets and things that fly. So maybe say there's a rocket launch scheduled for that time. Again, this would not be an auspicious time to do something like that. Chances are it will not be successful, or something may just accidentally go wrong. And for the stock market, I think this will be a wild time, which is again 29th of June through the 9th of July, and there may be really strong like swings, excessive volatility, and because of Uranus being in Taurus, this may specifically involve banks, financial institutions, currencies, and the particular cryptocurrencies. So any sort of digital currencies, digital assets, or assets related to like airlines, banks, or electricity, electric cars, airlines, and things like that. And where the Saturn may come in with this square is when I think those swings, these unexpected swings, or these really kind of wild moves may lead to really aggressive governmental regulations, and there may be situations where some asset is going up and then falling down just like crazy over a really short period of time, and it may also lead to the trading being halted, or it could be like a stop and go situation where suddenly the power is on, the power is off, the trading is on, the trading is off. Something really kind of unstable around that time. And as I mentioned globally before in my previous videos, and just right now, we are experiencing the Uranus Saturn square, which is ongoing and will be with us through about November of 2022, and that typically corresponds with just this time of kind of tensions where there are some ideological clashes between Uranian ideas of like freedom, equality, and kind of focus on the benefit of, I guess, humanity, so to speak, maybe, but also making things move fast, some progress, perhaps at the expense of, caution, and on Saturnian ideas of kind of making things move super like slowly, carefully, triple and quadruple checking for everything, and obviously more conservative ideas, and focus on kind of preserving the status quo. So because of these planets being in the square, obviously these sort of trains of thought, or the ideologies associated with those are not going to be aligning very well. And the times where Mars kind of triggers that square, such as end of June, early July, these kind of just clashes from maybe internal disagreements where the person thinks, okay, on the one hand, I'd like to do this, but on the other hand, oh yeah, I want to preserve things as things were. Mars may come up and make basically those it to be impossible for things to continue. It will basically require some, things erupting in a protest, or some significant change to occur, because obviously these tensions, they're not occurring in a vacuum. They're needed to be to basically promote some sort of improvement of. So for example, if there is somebody who's maybe suffering from some illness, or like I said, there are parts that maybe are broken and really are faulty, or really need to be retired, such as likely part of an engine, an airplane, or something like that. This is the time where this progress may occur. First, things may potentially break, and especially, I guess, end of June to early July is particularly, looks to me like a time prone to some airline type accidents. But at the same time, if things are attended to it, that's where progress may occur, where actually the innovation may now be implemented from being this idea to actually, someone can act on it, and basically there is progress. But again, progress at this time through about November of 2022 may not necessarily be flowing smoothly, but rather through this, jumps, and from tensions rising, or from something being ground down, where worn out, and finally, okay, things are just so bad that things need to change, and at the same time, these new innovative ideas are now being able to flourish. However, like I said, this may not be going quite smoothly at this time. And generally, let's see, for US, end of January to early March, and this week, there's still this influence will be with us, so about 1st through the 4th of March is where we may hear more the usual kind of important announcements related to either financial policies, taxes, earnings, especially related to like IT, airspace, electric cars, social media, telecoms, and banks. And there may also be increased events, not events, but other news about important individuals such as like various, like, CEOs, politicians, actors, and I guess we just had this news, unfortunately, about Tiger Woods suffering, injuries to his legs last week. So that is along the lines of what I was predicting in some previous videos, basically, for this whole time period where, and it's still with us this week, but I think we'll be waning the following week, where some prominent individual may be in the news because of their like status changes from, having money or having health or their earnings being, doing well, to either losing their freedom, being kicked out of some organization, some negative consequences for prior, risky or prior behavior where maybe they caused loss to someone, like financial loss, and at this time they're more likely to be called out on it or be constrained somehow. Let's see. And for China, from about February 8th through mid-March, and this week again, March 1st through 4th are particularly important dates. There may be increased focus on important powerful alliances, leadership, and expanding militarily, and also on any sort of enhancing capabilities related to communication, transportation areas, as well as oil, gas, navy, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, movies, etc., as you recognize those are Neptunian areas. And I did hear, I'm not sure if it was last week or the week before, where they found some really large oil source. I think it was in the ocean. I didn't really write that down, but it is still going to be sort of the suspicious time going to be in place for China through about mid-March, so there may be more of similar announcement or similar developments. And again, for any such enhancements, again, expanding militarily or expanding projects related to communication, transportation, oil, gas, etc., there may need to be to appoint to like new leaders or change leadership structure, maybe have a new CEO. So there may be some changes in the leadership again to have these new leaders lead basically these new ambitious projects. For oil, I did give some fairly detailed breakdown of what I think might occur this year on my blog at pilstonka.com. Just check out my latest weekly post. And in some, I think there will be times coming up in April, especially around April 8th through 11th, and then in September, especially September 1st through 3rd, where there may be increased tensions around like oil prices, value of oil, or transportation of oil, some disagreements either among the countries that say manufacture oil products or transport oil. So some tensions or even arguments, perhaps attacks on facilities that are like refineries or just accidents at those facilities. And at the same time, we may hear about potentially large market drops also around April 8th through 11th and September 1st through 3rd. And then, as I mentioned, the more details on that I have for this year on my blog, and also just a few highlights for next year and then 2025, because those I think will be significant in terms of the direction for oil prices, as well as any events such as the large oil spill. And this is the signature I've seen multiple times, kind of looking back into like 60s, 80s, 90s, etc., is around April 4th through 12th of 2022. There's really a strong probability, plus minus a few days, and of course this could be just entire spring, but really April of 2022 may see really stronger than usual floods, large-scale oil leaks, as well as news about various like pandemics, like a flu pandemic or some spread of infectious diseases. Obviously, if you have pollution through floods, it can bring out all kinds of pathogens from the soil, and of course can cause some disease to spread. So those things go together. But I think that in the weeks prior to April of 2022, the price of oil may go up and then peak around early to mid-April of 2022 and then go down. And that could be on the concerns of surplus of oil or some excess of oil, excess availability of oil at that time. However, there may also be just the entire spring of next year may see some increased concerns about excessively wet weather, floods, major oil spill, and things like that. And then finally, 2025 is going to be an important year, not just for oil, but for oil in particular. Probably will be one of those multi-year sort of either top or bottom. I think it might be a top for oil prices in 2025, but this will be something on a scale of like multiple years, so a fairly unique kind of a rare, I would say, time period. And there may be really major changes in terms of how the oil is either used or processed, or even how things are manufactured, any sort of chemicals that are manufactured using oil and gas. So really major changes there, as well as we will have potentially another really major wave of some pandemic, and this could be like a flu-related pandemic or anything else along those lines. And compared to the COVID pandemic we've been experiencing, I think the one or whatever might be coming in 2025 perhaps could be, I wouldn't say worse, but would be more of a concern. At the same time, the good news is that Neptune is actually going to be entering into a new sign of Aries, and Aries usually has to do with things going really fast, sports, things like that. Excuse me. So of course, doping comes to mind, where we may be hearing more about like all these enhancements. But aside from that, we may also hear about development of various medications going really fast. So maybe surgeries, something that can be used to heal, maybe develop much faster, or if so, there's a pandemic is what I'm saying, and there's a probability of it is, I think, high, considering that that's when we will have Saturn conjuncting Neptune, which is something that we previously experienced under 1918 Spanish flu. At the same time, I guess, because Neptune is going to be also entering Aries, there may be also quick the ability to kind of develop solutions quicker than before as well. So for example, previously when we had Neptune in Aries, there was also time where there were some developments of how basically ability to have surgeries on the field, on the battlefield, was developed. So the ability to basically repair soldiers or treat soldiers faster, because again, they're on the battlefield, I guess, and things need to happen quite quickly. So again, you have this, on the one hand, potentially negative situation where we may expect more, some sort of flu epidemic or something like that. But at the same time, it may also somehow stimulate the development of some innovative medical solutions, and especially since Aries has to do with like sports, so it could be related to sports injuries or any injuries that are especially to the head, for example. So that's just a really long time from now. That said, it's still interesting to keep this kind of perspective in mind. And with that, hope you had enjoyed this weekly episode, and will come back and check me out next time. Until then, have a great week. Bye, everyone.